Hey, welcome back to the Leashed podcast. I'm your host, Mandy Bowtell. On today's episode, I talk with Mike Shikashio from aggressivedog.com, and we have a really good conversation about a few different topics, actually. We dig into self doubt and imposter syndrome. We talk about prioritizing yourself within your business and how that might look for anyone, really. So, without further ado, let's dig in. Thank you so much for joining me, Mike. I'm so excited to have you on and just get into this whole discussion about mental health with you today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for bringing an important topic to our community. So I appreciate having this opportunity to chat with you.
Absolutely. I'm honored to have you on as one of my first guests for this season. Before we even really dive into anything, I am curious, what has your mental health kind of been like just from the beginning? Because I know for myself growing up, that was never a focus. And then leading up to the dog training industry, no one ever talked about prioritizing mental health. So I'm curious how that journey has been for you before you even got started.
Yeah, I guess I can give a longer answer to this because I think that my childhood actually impacted a lot of what I'm doing now. And I've been talking about this more recently, but growing up in a very non-empathetic family environment. So it was, being an Asian kid in a mostly, non-Asian town growing up
Hmm.
was had its interesting dynamics, of course, and I'm sure the listeners can kind of imagine what that's like. But empathy and emotions were like not a thing for my family. Like, don't talk about it. Just be a model citizen. Just study hard, and everything else will be good in life. And so I never really learned the. I had a very poor EQ. They talk about IQ and
Ah.
EQ. My EQ is like non-existent. Like, had a tough time. That's all stuff I had to learn,
Mhm.
and I think it really impacted my journey as I moved into different career paths and into what I'm doing now. And I think a lot of us as trainers get into working with dogs because we like working with dogs and we're getting sick of people. So I came from a career where I was getting very sick of the people. I was working in the casino industry with a lot of, materialism, flamboyant, like throwing money around, gambling. So not,
Right.
not a very wholesome environment. And certainly not one where you can imagine all the different personalities and how it's very
I
difficult to navigate those conversations.
I
So
could
I
see that
moved
being draining.
totally, yeah, and not very, rewarding for me. It's good
No.
money. It's a good way to, support my family at the time, but from a mental health aspect, it wasn't doing me any good. So I got started working with dogs, thinking, okay, let me get away from the people for a little bit. But it evolved into recognizing, especially in aggression cases, just how much we work with people and just how many emotions are involved and just how much you have to learn to be empathetic to be an effective consultant and trainer. So all of that kind of grew on me, and it's something I had to learn over the years and acquire as a skill because I had none of it before. I mean, it was embarrassing. Like if you sat in on some of my conversations in my early days of training, it would just be it's like it
Oh,
would actually
same.
be comedic. It would be very funny to like listen to those conversations or even see some of my online chats like way back in the Yahoo group days. It was just awful.
Oh,
So
wow, Yahoo group. We're dating ourselves now.
yeah, way back in the day, right? So yeah, that's where I've recognized where, mental health, compassion, empathy, understanding are so crucial, and it's what's formed and shaped my career even. So yeah, sort of a long answer to your question.
No, that was a great answer. To go back to where you said just noticing that you needed to have more compassion and empathy for the owners outside of the dog aspect, especially with aggression cases, I'd love to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So, my mind has always been analytical, mathematical. And so when I would first start talking with a client, it was kind of just do like, okay, here's your formula, here's the antecedent, here's the behavior, here's the consequence. So talking in a very dry
All the
way after they've just like,
scientific jargon.
yeah. And this is like literally after they've just bawled their eyes out talking about how their dog just bit somebody that they love. And I'd be like, okay. And I would say anything to like recognize their emotions. I'd be like, okay, let's move on. This is how you're going to, teach a sit. This is what a clicker is, or this is how. And I was completely oblivious to understanding their emotions and being empathetic. And having that is such an important tool because that's how you get to build that rapport and trust. So they do participate more in the future and they do listen more. And, it's a skill that, again, just had to be developed over time because I recognized that I needed to be more of an effective consultant because sometimes I wasn't getting through to my clients at all.
Was there a specific moment where you recognized that? Like, or a specific case or anything?
I don't think there was any specific moment. I think I just started to recognize in the clients because one of the best things a trainer or consultant can do is on that drive home, or
Mhm.
if we're still driving home from
Oh, you
clients these
pick it
days.
apart.
Yeah, you definitely. It's the best time to think about what you did, and I started to focus on my conversations. So, because the
Oh,
training, as we know, if you're focusing on one thing, it's with the dogs. It's like the same thing over and over most of the time. It's with
right.
the clients that you like think about your conversations. How could it have been more effective? So that's one of the best tools. So I don't think there was any one particular moment. I think it was just a culmination over time. Like, darn it, what did I do wrong? Or like, why is this client
Right.
like giving up? Or what did I say? Or is there something I could have said better? Or could I have communicated that in a better way? Could be more empathetic or listened more instead of interrupting them? And that all just kept building and building. And I actually started to dive into, learning more conversational skills, more techniques,
Same here. Yep.
because I was not good at it. I was not good at it at all. So I was terrible, terrible. So
It's good. We have these humble beginnings and it really helps us shift. I don't know if you know this, but I came from a hairstylist background. So I was chatty. I knew how to get people to talk, but I didn't. It was all surface level.
yeah,
You never, I like, and
it's
then
interesting.
getting into the training atmosphere and learning, like, oh, I need to like get on your level and understand you and help you process this. Cause I feel like and correct me if I'm wrong, but specifically with aggression cases, it's traumatic for not only the dog, but the guardian. And they're needing to have this time to process, okay, my dog bit somebody. Where do we go from here? Is this trainer going to support me? So I'm sure that's just so much on the trainer having to realize they have to come in and really get through the weeds with everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and creating a safe space for them to
Yes.
openly talk about what's going on in their lives. Because if you don't create that, then they're not going to tell you all the information you need. Especially when it gets down to the bite incidents and the bite history. I mean, some clients vomit that information out afterwards, but
Right.
other times they're very withdrawn, or they might be embarrassed, they might be frustrated, there's
Feel
reasons they might not
ashamed.
be, yeah, or they don't want to get their dog in trouble.
Mhm.
And so if we don't create that safety for them where they can open up and tell us all the details, then we might be missing some really crucial information to help that dog and that client. So I think in order to do that, we have to establish that trust. We have to establish that relationship, just like we do with our dogs. We have to establish it with the client as well for them to feel safe to open up to the behaviors we're looking for, right? That information,
Yes.
communication.
I love that. You just, like, blew my mind with that. So, with everything you're doing, with the aggression cases, with your master course, with the conference, with the podcast, you are a busy man. Burnout is inevitable. How do you reset from being burnt out? Do you get burnt out?
I do, yeah. I recently just got burnt out, actually, with
Oh, man.
lots of having to navigate all the social media conversations. But so it just for me, it's making sure I schedule time off. It was something I was also terrible about. I
Same.
was very much into the hustle culture, so work,
Same.
work, 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 work. Part of my upbringing as an Asian kid in the U.S. was very much hustle culture, just study, work hard, and life will be good kind of mindset. And that's definitely something I've
Just
steered away
layer
from.
it down. Don't talk about
Yeah,
it.
exactly, and that's a problem because that leads to burnout without recognizing mental health.
Yes.
So for me, I've learned to schedule time off. So
Okay.
I schedule massive amounts of time off with knowing when I do hustle. So I have days of hustle. So I work sometimes a 12-hour day on some days, and some days I decide I'm not going to do any. I'm not going to look
Mhm.
at email. I'm not going to open social media, and I might do that for weeks at a time. Or even like in this summer, I'm scheduling pretty much all of July and August off completely
Good
and
for
do
you.
pretty much anything work related other than like
Maintenance
I'm still
stuff.
gonna or yeah, maintenance stuff, but also just more of creative time. So creating content, I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet, but it's
You
just
have that
it
time,
allows
though.
you, yeah, it allows you that
Yeah.
because it's really tough to be creative and create content when you're so busy doing the other things. So, but that's how I reset. You need to I prioritize time off. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to be like, wait a second. I need to give myself some time off, some breaks, because especially when you're doing aggression cases, it's almost always an emergency for clients who are like, oh,
Right.
when can you see me? And you're scheduling, and you get busy and you're making money, you feel successful, and then but then you look at your calendar, next thing you know, you don't have like a day off for like 3 months, which is not good for anyone.
Ooh.
So to reset, yeah, time off is important, and what you do, of course, in that time off is important as well. But that's how I recharge when I get burnt out. So
So
just
yeah.
recently got back from Cyprus, got a nice little few days to recharge, go see some sights and enjoy the warm weather. That for me was my recharge. So
And that was also a work trip too. So you kind of
yeah.
you did a double whammy there. You got the best of both worlds with that.
Yeah, almost all of my trips are work trips, but I always schedule extra time especially if I'm going somewhere like Cyprus.
Right.
Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? So it's like 2-day workshop, and then 4 or 5 days of just
You get to
unwinding.
decompress. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I need to do that. I need to take that advice because I'm horrible. I haven't had a vacation in years. So you mentioned social media and burnout from that. Being the public figure you are, and just with how long you've been in the industry, you are someone that will have conversations with anyone, because I think it is a great point to have these conversations so that we are keeping things open and giving others opportunities for sure. And with that, there is always some negativity going on, especially in the realm of social media when we can't control how people take things, even though we try to be really good about how we word them. Um, and I know that that is something that you got hit with recently after being on Ivan's podcast. So I would love to dive into that with you if you are wanting to.
Yeah, yeah. So for the listeners that might not be aware, there are
Yes.
very
Yeah.
few listeners, I think,
Good
at this
point.
point. So I was on Ivan Balabanov's podcast, who's sort of, if we were to label trainers, which I hate doing, but if label trainers into certain methodologies, Ivan's a kind of well-known balance trainer, and he invited me on as sort of this well-known, in his mind, force-free trainer. But I don't, again, give myself that label. I tend to just try to look at everybody as a trainer first, and then hear about tools they might or might not use. But
Right.
so that caused quite an uproar, because it's almost like sleeping with the enemy or stepping foot into enemy territory with a bouquet of roses, right? So it can seem to show that, we can debate methods without calling each other awful names or making death threats or all these awful things that can happen on social media.
Mhm.
But my goal is always to just, with the audience that person has, there's always somebody that's in that audience that's looking to learn more. And that's my goal, is be like, hey, I'm here too, guys. And if you want to learn about positive reinforcement-based methods to work with aggression cases, I'm here. So it gives the exposure to somebody they might not have heard of. And it works every single time. Every single time I
Exactly.
appear
Yeah.
on somebody's podcast that's maybe a balance trainer, or speak at a conference, or do a workshop where there's balance trainers, there's always at least one or two, if not many more, that will reach out to me like, hey, I want to know more. And that's the change I'm looking to make.
That's one
And
more person. Yeah.
right. And I think that's difficult. Again, for some people, like, why should we reach out? There's plenty of education available for these people. Well, that's true, but it's not always easy to get out of your own echo chamber, or sort of your own camps. And I only do that because I'm a perfect example of it. I was
Yeah.
that person using shock collars, using prong collars early on in my career, but it's only because somebody opened that door for me where I was able to learn and move forward into doing what I do now, which is positive based methods. So yeah, that's the backstory on that. And
Thank you for that.
yeah. So there's history there. But the difficulty for me that started happening is, of course, I got a lot of backlash from it. And I won't even label it trolling. I think people have the right to have their criticisms. I think people have the right to express their opinions. I think they should express their concerns. I think they should reach out to me and be like, hey, Mike, I have this concern. That is totally fine. And I'm open to that. And I publicly gave out my email.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And people could message me. And so, and I received some messages, tons of messages of support, and some really nicely worded and kind messages, like, hey, this is my concern. And I was able to reply to people. The tough thing, though, is when you have a small group that will, they're attacking you no matter what you say. And I guess the hardest part for me was people you would have considered your allies, or somebody that supported you before, or somebody you even did like work for, or did, presented for, or did like a podcast or something for, and then
Right.
suddenly they're turning on you. that's the part that hurts. So that's the hardest part, because I'm a human. Everybody's human. So it's hard not
Yeah. How
to
can you not
be
take that
impacted that.
in?
But I also have to recognize, there's deeper layers to that. And so when somebody, expresses their opinions in a very strong way, or maybe that's would be considered by others as an attack, or even me as an attack, often they have an underlying reason or their own trauma or their own views as why they're expressing it that way. And
Oh
there's
my
that
gosh,
mental
yes.
health aspect. I have to recognize when somebody has maybe experienced trauma or abuse in their life, and maybe they're seeing the dogs treated in the same way they were treated. And so, how could I, as the person that's representative of this community, go reach out to the abusers or to those? And I can completely understand that. That's their view. So it wouldn't be ethical or kind of me to attack those people back. In that moment, I can try to respond and explain my point. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I have to recognize that everybody's going through their own journey and their past experiences and their views. So that's what's helped me kind of navigate this and work through this situation. Is that recognizing that people say mean things, it's not always because of me. It's because of what they might be going through in their time of life. Everybody's going through something at some point in their life. Everybody is, and to say everybody's life is perfect would be a complete misstatement. So, so once we recognize that, then we can. Takes the sting out of it. It helps us empathize. It helps us understand why people can be like that, especially on social media. And it helps you move forward. So that, and of course, the support of a million different people have been amazing.
That was such a good answer. And you touched on a point that I don't think a lot of us even think about. For me, even, I know like before the pandemic, when I was training, I was very reactive in my response. I always thought that I needed to be on the defense and that if someone had something negative, like with wolf culture, so many people had negative things to say about some designs I made. And I immediately took it as, oh, you're saying this about me. It's personal about me. When I finally started doing my own healing and trauma healing journey, and I realized, like, oh, this isn't, they have something that's unprocessed. And that's not to say that, like, oh, you're screwed up and that's why you're taking this out on me. It's, I can acknowledge that someone else might be hurting and they still have healing to do. So I'm not going to lash out at them because I know what it's like to be in that place. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we recognize why they might be responding in that way. And there's others, of course, there's other people that may not be coming from that place. They might be
Right.
coming from a very strong advocacy standpoint. They really believe in, not reaching across the aisle or building bridges because those people should know in their mind. And that's okay. They don't have to. Nobody's asking them or telling them, hey, build bridges with everybody. Leave
Right.
that for people that
The
are
what that
going
want to
to
do
do
it.
that
Yeah.
or are open to doing it. Just don't attack them for doing it. It's everybody has the choice to have conversations with who they want to. I understand the difference between that and then platforming or giving somebody that stage of saying,
Right.
hey, it's so if I was say, Ivan, come on my podcast and let's talk about shock collars and how great they are for aggression cases. Yeah, totally give me backlash for that. But, there's a difference between me appearing on somebody else's podcast. I don't think that gives validity to that person of saying, oh, now Mike is supporting balanced training. It's no, I'm trying to change the minds of the few listeners on his side that might be open to change. That's it. And I know it works. And people sometimes don't think about that or don't believe that, but I know, and it's in my heart. I know that it works. I know that I've gotten so many messages that, that really are my reinforcement for
Good.
this behavior, right?
I love that. So, on the topic of social media, one question I did get asked, and I think it's a great question for you, is when is it appropriate to respond to negative comments, or when do you decide, okay, I'm just going to block and delete?
Great question. I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt at first. So if somebody responds or comments negatively, can't think of an example. I haven't actually responded at least once with some sort of message of, hey, thanks for your comment. And you always, that's the way to respond. It doesn't matter
Thank them
what they
for,
call you.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Thank you for your concern. I'm trying to understand. Here's my explanation. You give your response. but without the same vitriol or fuel back. And you're going to get a few different responses. Sometimes they're just going to respond in the same way. It doesn't matter what you say, you're still a jerk, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one type of response. But sometimes you'll be very surprised what you see. Like, oh, you know what? They respond with that same kind of tone, and then it turns into
A
a
conversation.
conversation.
Yeah.
And again, that initial comment from them might have come out of a place of emotion or what they've been fueled by in the past. And what fuels them, of course, is the likes and the reinforcement for their comments often. And that's the nature of social media. There's
Oh,
lots of
yeah.
there's lots of this reinforcement that's happening without us often realizing it for our comment. So you have that. But if somebody continues, and especially if it crosses that line of threatening, behavior or abusive language, I draw the line there. I'll say, okay, delete and block, because that also affects the people that are reading along. And I don't want to create an environment of hostility completely all the time. I do want to show, though, that you can respond in an empathetic way with kindness and compassion first,
Hmm.
and then leave it up to that person. If they continue on, then it's time to also protect yourself as well as those around you. And that's the time I will delete the post or delete the comment and block. Been very few times I've had to do that in
Right.
20 years of training and being on social media or Yahoo groups or MySpace or something, all the old stuff we used to do. It's been, such a few amount of times. So that just goes to show there's not, the vast majority of trainers are good people. We just get caught up in some of these conversations sometimes. Most of us are going to be very nice, especially if we see each other in person, right?
Right. Exactly. I feel like a lot of the comments we get, if someone was to say it in person, it would be taken completely differently. And that's the thing with the day and age we're in. Text can be misdirecting. Social media comments, like, you never know how it's meant to come across.
Exactly. The
There's no
nuances of
nuance. Yeah.
conversation are gone. There's no facial expression. We get emojis. But other than that, you get no body language, no tone of voice,
Yes.
and then to top it off, imagine if like you're at a conference and you're talking to like somebody and you're like having a debate over some tool, and then suddenly everybody who's agreeing with you comes up and starts like patting you on the back and like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, during the conversation. That's what's happening on social media, which then ends up influencing, that and reinforcing that person for making those comments. They may not see that the tone or the way they're communicating is not being very effective.
In your role and how you started aggressivedog.com, how you even went and just blew it out of the water with aggression and training in general, have you ever experienced self-doubt, imposter syndrome while you've been building all of that?
All the time.
Really?
All the time. And it's an important thing. I think imposter syndrome is a good and a bad thing. It has us second guessing ourselves. It has us kind of like doubting our abilities, and it can affect our mental health as well if we're
Absolutely.
constantly feeling like we're not enough. However, it does help us check ourselves at the door first, right? So it helps us be like, am I giving the right information? Especially when you start speaking and doing, and of course it matters in every aspect of training, but especially when you get on a bigger stage, you really want to check what you're presenting, because you're
Yeah.
influencing a lot of people in some venues. So that's where imposter syndrome can be good, because you're like, wait a minute, do I really know what I'm talking about here? And am I like this? And you start, if you have like other speakers that have been like around the industry for a long time and like you've learned from,
Oh, right.
that really hits hard. You're like, oh, like the first time I was speaking, it was like at the APDT conference in Australia. It was there was a number of speakers, but Ken Ramirez and I were kind of going like had sort of back and forth stage time. Talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, this guy's talking about like getting butterflies to migrate and getting elephants to take different paths in Africa, and here I am on like, how do I top that? How do I even compare? But I had a great time. Ken was super supportive and sat in on all my talks, and it's just like, and I could play off of him. Like I would call on him. We'd joke around, but that was imposter syndrome at its finest. But it really like had me thinking about my presentations more in detail. So yeah, imposter syndrome has its benefits and its pros and cons, I should say. But it's a good thing to have. I think when we don't have imposter syndrome, problem. It's a problem because we don't. So that Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. So, and the way I deal with this, I just check my sources, check my, double check my work, and even bounce ideas off a colleague. Be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or And what are your thoughts? Is there anything I should improve or anything you think? And that can be really helpful to solidify. And just be prepared. If anybody's out there, preparing a talk or getting a webinar ready, just rehearse. Rehearsing takes a lot of that imposter syndrome away, and because you add more to as you go along.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is a good thing to kind of fuel things with. And I've been learning that myself as well, especially with the podcast. I've been like, oh, there's so many people doing podcasts. Everyone's doing it. Anyone can talk about mental health. Like, who the heck am I? But I think it's a good thing to fuel you because you wouldn't be feeling that way if your heart wasn't in it and if you weren't excited about it and if you didn't know that it was going to add value to somebody out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, on all this mental health rainbow that we are covering right now, what boundaries do you have like set in place that is just it's a firm, this is how I am prioritizing my mental wellness? Aside from having like lots of determined breaks and scheduling that out, are there any certain systems you have in place just within work so that you're not running yourself ragged?
Yeah, it's something that I've learned to put into place over the years. So again, going from that hustle culture of just work, 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 work,
Mhm.
and very little family time is to this kind of goes along with scheduled breaks, but it's making sure that my schedule does take into account spending time for my own, improvement, my own health. So working out, time for exercise, the typical things that we do for keeping ourselves at the best. And the reason for that is because to be an effective consultant, trainer, company owner, whatever it is, we have to be our best selves. And especially
Mhm.
when we're talking with clients or working with clients or students, it's unethical not to show up your best self. So first thing you need to do is take care of yourself. And if you don't, then you're not serving your clients well, you're not serving your students well, you're not serving your business well. So that's first and foremost. So I always kind of have that mindset around let's make sure I'm setting enough time to do that. And I've been reading, or I listened in on this great book actually while I was away in Cyprus, this book called it's Essentialism. But so it's sort of like the term when you hear essentialism, you're kind of thinking, is that like minimalism or is that like so what does it mean? And what it is really more about the tasks in your life. So what you do in your daily routine and helping you prioritize things. Because when you first start out, especially if you're starting to get into different areas of training or speaking, is you say yes to everything. You're like, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yes,
God.
yeah, okay, I'll write an article for this. Yeah, sure, yeah. And your next thing you know, your schedule is completely full of yeses, which means that that's something you have to say no to eventually. And
And it gets
so
harder.
it gets totally harder, right?
Yeah.
And it gets more and more opportunities, which is not a bad thing, but you have to learn how, because then what happens is that pushes aside the other parts of your life that you need to be paying attention to, whether it's your family, whether it's your dogs, whether it's your personal health. You need that time. You need to think about those things. And so essentialism is all about that. It's like prioritizing what's really important, what
I
you
like
really need
that.
to do. And the busier you get, you have to start saying no to things. And that could be whether you're in training or if you're getting into other aspects of the dog training industry, whether you're speaking, creating webinars, whatever it is, there's a point where you have to start saying no to things and decide what is most essential for your life.
Yes.
And it's amazing. It's a great book. And I mean, it even talks about things like sleep, like, it's making sleep an essential thing.
It's so essential.
Right. And think about mental health, right? Like,
Right.
so that hustle culture has you like, if you're sleeping more than 5 hours a night, then you're a slouch, and that's awful advice because that impacts your sleep, which impacts your productivity, which impacts your mental health. So it's all like
Yes.
this, it's all related. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been focusing on sort of like in terms of systems, like in my own thinking system is just
That's great.
focusing on the essential part of things. And it's so crucial when you get to certain stages, you have to think that way.
Have you noticed that starting to kind of bleed into other parts of your life and just where you've learned to start prioritizing that and where it's started to ease things out in some
Definitely.
aspects?
Definitely. So I've kind of been practicing it for a long time, without really knowing about this concept. The
Right.
concept just sort of really validated everything that I've been trying to do and reminded me also like, hey, you got to remember to stick to this.
Right.
And so, yeah, things like, getting help, finding help for certain tasks. So my previous job, I was at a casino. I had like 80 employees. I was like,
Oh
left that
gosh.
job. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have an employee again in my life. I want to just work for myself. I'm going to be this dog trainer that just sees cases on his own, no employees, nothing. But that changed. So things start to grow, things get bigger again. And so you find you need help. And it's just like leaving a career. You're worried about the money. You're like, all right, am I
Right.
going to be successful enough to support my family if I go into dog training, leave this, well-paying casino job? So that's a big thought. You're like, oh, that's nerve-wracking, that's stressful. So then you get to the same thing when you start hiring people or having contractors work for you. You're like, oh, am I going to be able to support this? Am I going to be able to afford
Right.
this? But let me tell you, it's the hardest decision in the sense of finances when you think about it, but it's the easiest decision when you look back at it. You're like, why didn't I do this before?
Oh my
Because
God.
it
Yes.
just makes things so much easier when you have, whether it's a paid, like an actual W-2 employee or a contractor doing things for you. So I started probably about 6, 7 years ago, started adding contractors to work for me and employees, but where they do certain tasks, whether it's just handling something like CEUs or, conference stuff or whatever. And it's the best thing I ever did because now they free up that time for you to do what you're good at. So whatever it is, like content creation or seeing clients, whatever it is that's making the money, or supporting your business and that what you actually like to do, it frees up that time. And it's hard. So anybody that's listening in, that's at a point where like you're working your butt off, you're like 50, 100 hours a week. There's no end in sight, always going, and you don't have anybody working for you yet, you're ready for it. You're ready to
Yes.
find somebody like, even if it's a 5, 10 hour a week, Fiverr type of contractor, get that person. They can do simple things, answer emails, respond to clients, do your marketing, do your website, whatever it is. It starts out of bookkeeping, let me tell you.
Oh God.
It's a
Yeah.
bookkeepers and accountants. I had sticker shock when I had my accountant uh, give me his plan, but the best thing I ever did, the best money I ever spent, because not only has he saved me more money than he actually costs in taxes,
Yep.
but he actually has just streamlined. This took so much off my plate. And I'm sure a lot of listeners, right around this time, it's tax season.
Oh, I
So
know
you're probably
exactly.
thinking like,
I'm
as you're
relating so hard to this.
yeah, bookkeeping. Imagine like not having to like add up any kind of receipts and all that. I mean, it's just such a time saver. So yeah, keep adding as you can afford it. Just keep adding those services. Next thing you know, you're going to have tons of free time to do the stuff you actually like. So that's been another aspect of the growth that it's been really important for my own mental health. So getting back to the mental health aspect, it just frees up the time for me to do that.
Well, yeah, because then you're able to focus on the thing that you are most passionate about, what you're best at, so that you feel better. Your mental health is doing better because you're not stressing about all these things in the background because it's taken care of.
Yeah,
Have you ever read The One Thing by Gary Keller?
I have not.
Oh my God,
No.
it's so, so good. I will link in the podcast notes for anyone that's listening. But it's essentially about finding your one thing, and then it just breaks it open in, okay, so if you're going to do your one thing, you need other people doing things in the background so you can focus on your one thing. And you can't see my whiteboard right now, but I have it so it's year, quarter, week, and day, and it kind of funnels down into what my one thing is that I work on that day.
Yep.
So I have my goals and they just get chunked down into the one thing.
And do you do it at a certain time of day? Do you do it at like a certain time when you know you're going to be most productive?
Oh, yes, always, of
Okay.
course, my
Yeah.
mornings. So,
Yeah.
like, before I started with you today, I wrote out everything I needed to do today, and then I just keep looking at it, and that has worked. And another thing from that book that you touched on with just kind of finding the balance with everything, he talks a lot about counterbalance. So, if you're gonna work hard, you need to play just as hard. You need to reap those benefits and soak that in so that you can come back stronger and recharged because and this is the whole reason I left the training industry is because I was so burnt out and I'm a people pleaser. So I was trying to accommodate all my clients all the time, answering texts at 11 at night. And it's just, you get run ragged. You can't prioritize other people, especially when it's not during work hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Those boundaries are so crucial. I kind of forgot to talk about that earlier. It was like the boundaries. especially in aggression cases, because it's almost always an emergency,
Oh,
guys, right?
I bet you're
It's
always in contact with them
it's
or
almost
were.
always like, yeah, like people are just like it's like the dog bit somebody or a new client or something happens and it scares the client and you're constantly almost on call. So you do have to set those boundaries. And you can do it in a way that you're still they still feel like they have you on speed dial in a way. You just set the times, you just set the days, you just set expectations about how long it might take you to respond, but let them know you're there for them. But it's just, yeah, if you don't set those boundaries, then you risk getting those 3 a.m. texts, right? Or, the people getting upset because you didn't respond in like an hour. So,
Right. Oh,
yeah, boundaries with your clients, with your colleagues, with your contractors,
everything.
whoever yeah, it's so, so crucial.
Now, with the boundaries, did you learn that from the get-go that you needed to set those expectations, or did you learn that after some boundaries were crossed?
Y I think I got lucky. I, I had to set some boundaries, but I don't think it's like I hear some horror stories from some trainers that poor trainers are, like, getting
Oh,
just unbelievable, like, harassment from some of their clients, and if they don't respond in, like, 10 minutes, the client's, like, leaving a bad Google review, and it's
oh
just some
gosh.
ridiculous things that can happen. It never got to me in that point, but I did have to set some expectations and like how often I would be responding. So I'd be like getting multiple emails from the same client in a day. Yeah, so I ended up, explaining, that how often I would respond and what the frequency is, or if they need more help, it would be at their certain rates. So any trainers listening in, again, especially for aggression cases, be very forthcoming with what your policies are in terms of the number of communications or contacts, your hours, and all those things, because it is going to save a lot of headaches later on. Trust me. It saves a lot of headaches, and we don't think about it, especially when we first start out. So any newer trainers listening in, when you first start, you're like, you just want all the business and you want to people
You
please
say
all the
yes to
people.
everything. Yes.
Yeah, and that's fine in the beginning, but make sure you're constantly thinking about eventually setting those boundaries because it sneaks up on you, right?
Oh,
You don't set
yes.
it, and then suddenly you're super busy because everybody hears about how nice and open and available you are.
Right.
Then next thing you know, you have instead of one client doing it, you have 40 clients all doing it at the same time. So set the boundaries ahead of time or like think about them before it gets to you.
I think we have covered so many beneficial topics for trainers right now, and I hope they're able to take just even a smidge of advice from everything we've delved into. One last question before I let you go. One piece of advice that you would have given yourself 5 years ago.
That's a good question. I think it's not about the destination, it's about the journey is the way I would sum it up. Because we have goals and it's important to set goals where we want to be in terms of business, in terms of life, in terms of our family, in terms of our own personal journey and health and mental wellness. But sometimes if we do that and we're setting our sights on that goal, especially if you have your own business, entrepreneurs are very, very kind of exposed to this. As we set our sights on a goal, we forget to enjoy the journey along the way. And
Oh,
we forget
yes.
to learn from our experiences along the way. And we forget to give ourselves time to process the learning experiences along the way. So remember that. Take those moments to reflect on where you're at while also keeping your eye on the goal that you've set. But don't forget about those moments and enjoy it. Enjoy those times, even in the bad times. There's going to be enjoyable moments. There's going to be those people that support you, that reach out to you, and that makes it all worthwhile, right? The difficult moments along that journey. So, yeah, respect the journey. It's a good thing.
And I think that applies just to even training as well. You
Mhm.
gotta enjoy the training journey.
Mhm.
Such a
Absolutely.
good way
Yeah.
to look at that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Leash Mind podcast, Mike. It has been an absolute joy talking through all of this with you. I feel like you've been giving me all this advice. Like I've been taking it in too. It just feels good to talk through this with you. It's awesome.
Well, I appreciate it again. Thanks so much.
If you found this podcast helpful, you like what we're doing here at The Leash Mind, leave a comment, subscribe, tag us on social media. Just give us a little R plus, and we'll be back with another episode.